When you watch the developments that we've seen overnight, Jim, we thought we'd be talking very much this morning about global trade with you, but I want to get your first initial response to what we've seen. Does this just add to the unpredictability of the Trump regime? Is that the broader significance of what we've seen overnight from an economic perspective?
I'm not, it's interesting. I'm not so sure about that. I find myself waking up and thinking maybe this starts to give him a bit more of a defined identity. In many ways, his first 100 days or so, whatever it's been, he's been sort of struggling with many of his themes, other than making a lot of noise about lots of things in terms of actually really focusing on getting certain things done. He's not being able to. So it's quite interesting to see how this guides him to lead on other fronts beyond, of course, what the follow-on from who knows what the consequence of this will be in terms of the interplay with Russia and so on. But as I say, in some ways, I find myself thinking, well, at least it gives him some kind of definition. On the broader issues, you were going to talk to me. Sorry.
So, Jim, what do you think we could see as a knock-on here, the geopolitical risks attached to this attack?
Well, obviously, one of the key things, if not the key thing, is the Russian response. I read that they've already called for an emergency debate at the UN. And I say that because the background for much of the first 100 days has been this notion of the Trump regime trying to get all friendly with Russia. So that looks like it's come to an abrupt end, unless Russia itself changes its stance about Syria and its leadership dramatically. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to watch. Obviously, that may have further broader play into aspects of Russia and the broader emerging world too. So we'll see.
Jim, what do you make of President Trump's ability to get through legislation that perhaps would benefit the US economy at this stage?
It's not looking very good, is it? And it'll be interesting to see how some of his colleagues in Congress react to Trump as the statesman with this attack on the Syrian leadership, because otherwise it feels to me as though his ability to get big things he makes so much noise about done are increasingly drifting away from him, whether it be issues on trade or issues to do with healthcare, and I think he's struggling. And we're starting to come down to earth to realise the remarkably odd structure of how US Congress operates with the president, and whoever happens to be the president can't just ram through what they want, especially if they don't understand the complex ways of trying to walk around the madness of Washington.
Jim, you mentioned trade. Obviously, President Trump is meeting with President Xi right now. And Trump says they're forging a great friendship. He's looking forward to a long friendship over many years now. Is this a good outcome? And do you expect it to continue positively regardless of the Syrian attack?
Well, I hope that's the case. I've been baffled, to put it mildly, at the stance of Trump and his advisors about the trade issue with China. It frequently seems to me that Trump's advisors are stuck in a time warp of about 30 years ago, trying to focus on supposedly unfair Chinese competition in industries like steel. It obviously has some core substance, but we're living in an era where one of the US's most iconic companies, Apple, has been selling more to Chinese consumers for at least 2 years than they are to the US consumer. And that's the sort of relationship that the US should be thinking about. Probably the most interesting economic, I think I've said this previously on Bloomberg this year, the most interesting statistic I've seen this year was news that overall German trade is now bigger with China than anybody else. And so this notion that China's stealing things from others is kind of crazy.
So do you see it as possible to create a win-win outcome in terms of trade from these kind of bilaterals?
Of course it is. That's, I think there is something to be said for for deeper pursuit of bilateral trade deals. Obviously, in my own brief time in government, I was pretty much involved in the whole so-called golden relationship with China, and it was based on exactly that. And I think if Trump is being genuine about this friendship, then given that the US and China are the two biggest economies in the world, it's really important that they can try and have a proper, sensible relationship on trade.